You think you are the one making decisions. You believe your choices are yours alone, born from logic and personal desire. But look closer at your last week. Think about the moment you decided to cancel those plans, or why you chose to stay silent during that dinner, or why you apologize for a mistake you are not even sure you made. Every move you make is a reaction to her subtle emotional shifts. You are not navigating a partnership, you are navigating a minefield. You pause before you speak, measuring the weight of your words against the potential for her sudden, cold withdrawal. You monitor her breathing, her tone, and the way she looks away, constantly recalibrating your behavior to avoid a conflict that never truly resolves. It is a constant, low-level hum of anxiety that you have mistaken for normal relationship friction. You are trapped in a feedback loop where your autonomy is traded for temporary peace. The leash is invisible, but it is tight. Today, we strip away the illusion. We are going to look at why the person closest to you might be the one holding the strings. Consider the last time you tried to address a genuine issue. You brought facts to the table. You wanted a resolution. You started with a simple observation about a broken promise or a neglected responsibility. But within seconds, the conversation shifted. She did not address the point you raised. Instead, she brought up a mistake you made 3 months ago, or she accused you of being aggressive simply because you held your ground. You found yourself defending your character rather than discussing the problem. This is the pivot. It is a tactical maneuver that turns a legitimate grievance into a battle for your moral standing. You start the conversation as an equal partner seeking clarity, but you end it as a defendant begging for a verdict. The logic you brought is discarded, replaced by a narrative where you are the source of all friction. What you are experiencing is not a series of unfortunate misunderstandings. It is a deliberate, systematic application of emotional weaponization. This is not about the heat of the moment or a simple clash of personalities. It is a clinical approach to control. When your emotions are treated as data points, they cease to be a bridge for connection and become a set of levers to be pulled. She observes your triggers, your fears, and your deepest needs, not to support you, but to map the exact pressure points that force your compliance. Think of it as a form of psychological architecture. She builds a structure around your responses, narrowing your options until the only path that leads to comfort is the one she has paved for you. You feel vulnerable because you are. Every time you share a doubt or express a frustration, you are handing over the blueprint to your own psyche. It is a quiet, persistent erosion of your boundaries. You are being managed, monitored, and steered, all while believing you are simply navigating the complexities of a difficult relationship. The threat is invisible because it looks like intimacy, but the intent is to ensure you never stand on solid ground. You are left in a state of constant, low-level disorientation. To understand why you stay, you must look at the laboratory. B.F. Skinner discovered that a subject does not work hardest when rewarded every single time. Instead, the highest level of effort occurs during intermittent reinforcement. When a rat presses a lever and receives a food pellet only occasionally, it does not stop pressing. It presses faster. It presses with more intensity. It becomes obsessed with the lever, convinced that the next push will finally yield the reward. In your relationship, the dynamic is identical. If she were consistently cold, you would leave. If she were consistently warm, you would feel secure. But she is neither. She fluctuates. One day, she is the partner you dreamed of, showering you with validation and closeness. The next, she is a wall of silence, withholding everything you crave. This unpredictability is not a flaw in her personality. It is the engine of your compliance. Your brain is wired to chase the reward that feels just out of reach. You work harder to please her, hoping that if you just act differently or say the right thing, the warmth will return and stay. You are the rat at the lever, and the uncertainty is the bait that keeps you locked in the cage, waiting for a pellet that is delivered only to keep you hungry. The cycle thrives on the shifting goalposts of your daily life. You wake up, and the rules of engagement have changed overnight. Yesterday, your independence was a sign of strength. Today, it is evidence of your emotional distance. You adjust your behavior to match this new expectation, walking on eggshells to avoid the silent treatment or the sharp corrective comment. You think you have finally decoded her needs, but the moment you align your actions with her demands, the target moves again. This is the essence of the hot and cold pattern. She creates a reality where your confidence is tethered to her shifting approval. You find yourself constantly scanning her face, her tone, and her text messages, searching for the subtle cues that indicate whether you are currently in favor. Your self-worth becomes a fluctuating asset, dependent on a market you do not control. You stop trusting your own judgment. You are no longer acting as an individual. You are performing for an audience that refuses to applaud. Now, look back at your most cherished memories. That weekend trip where she was perfect, the long conversations that felt like a soul-deep connection, the moments you felt truly seen. You hold these memories as proof of a genuine bond. But you must ask yourself a brutal question. Were those moments expressions of love, or were they strategic investments? When she provided that intense, intoxicating validation, she was building a reservoir of trust. She was creating a baseline of good that you would spend the rest of the relationship trying to reclaim. It is the classic bait and switch. Every time you feel the urge to leave, your mind flashes back to those early days, convincing you that the person you fell for is still in there, waiting to be recovered. That is the trap. You are not missing her. You are missing the version of yourself that felt safe and valued. She used your own capacity for love to build the very cage you now occupy. You are not fighting for a future. You are mourning a mirage. Once the bait is set, the real work begins. The cultivation of guilt. You see her mood darken, her shoulders slump, or her eyes glaze over, and you immediately search for your own error. This is not an accident. It is a calculated tactic. She has trained you to view her unhappiness as a direct consequence of your existence. When she sighs heavily or withdraws into a cold, stony silence, she is planting a seed of responsibility in your mind. You begin to ask yourself what you did wrong, even when you have done nothing at all. She does not need to explicitly blame you. She simply needs to present her misery as a vacuum that only your apology can fill. You become a detective in your own home, scouring your recent actions for the invisible offense that triggered her withdrawal. By accepting this burden, you grant her total control over your emotional state. You start to believe that if you were just a little more attentive, a little more patient, or a little more compliant, she would finally be happy. This is the ultimate lie. Her unhappiness is a tool, a lever she pulls to keep you off balance and perpetually apologetic. You are not a partner in this dynamic. You are a caretaker for a crisis that she creates. When guilt alone no longer keeps you in line, she elevates the tactic to a performance of victimhood. Imagine you finally gather the courage to address a genuine issue. You speak calmly, presenting facts, expecting a rational exchange. But the moment the words leave your lips, the atmosphere shifts. Her expression crumbles. She does not defend her actions. She defends her fragility. She claims your tone is aggressive, your timing is cruel, or that you are intentionally trying to hurt her. Suddenly, the conversation is no longer about the problem you raised. It is about your supposed cruelty. You find yourself backpedaling, abandoning your original point to comfort the very person who caused the issue in the first place. This is the victimhood pivot. By casting herself as the injured party, she forces you into the role of the aggressor. You are no longer a partner seeking resolution. You are a villain seeking redemption. Your brain scrambles to fix the damage, and in that frantic search for peace, you apologize. You apologize for speaking up. You apologize for having needs. She watches this transformation with cold precision, knowing that as long as she is the victim, you will never be the one who is heard. Now, consider what happens when you try to reclaim your space. You set a boundary. Perhaps you state that you need an hour of solitude, or that you will not tolerate being shouted at. You expect a respectful acknowledgement. Instead, you are met with a wall of emotional resistance. She might respond with a sudden, icy withdrawal or a dramatic display of hurt that makes your request feel like a personal attack. She does not argue the logic of your boundary. She attacks the act of setting it. She makes it clear that your need for space is a rejection of her. This is the erosion process. Every time you attempt to protect your own needs, she increases the emotional tax you must pay. You quickly learn that the price of peace is the total abandonment of your own standards. You begin to anticipate her reaction. You stop setting the boundary because you have been conditioned to believe that the friction it causes is a failure on your part. The final stage of this control is the total redefinition of your character. You are no longer a partner, you are the villain. It starts with small, loaded comments. She frames your silence as brooding, your focus as coldness, and your presence as an act of intimidation. Even when you are doing nothing, she reacts as if you are preparing to strike. She gasps when you enter a room. She flinches when you raise your hand to reach for a glass. These are not reactions to your actions. They are performances, designed to convince you that you are dangerous. You find yourself walking on eggshells, monitoring your own body language, and softening your voice, all to prove that you are not the monster she describes. The pressure is suffocating. You are trapped in a reality where your basic existence is treated as a provocation. If you try to correct her, you are labeled defensive. If you stay quiet, you are labeled guilty. You are being forced to inhabit a persona you never chose, a villainous caricature that justifies her every reaction. You stop trusting your own intentions because you are constantly viewing yourself through her distorted lens. The trap is now fully set. You have been pushed, prodded, and labeled until your nerves are frayed to the point of snapping. You are exhausted from defending a character you do not recognize. Eventually, the pressure forces a reaction. You raise your voice. You slam a door. You finally say, "Enough." In that singular moment of release, you believe you are reclaiming your truth, but she is waiting for this. The moment you lose your composure, the dynamic shifts instantly. She does not address the cause of your anger. She points only to the volume of it. She records your outburst, she highlights your shaking hands, and she presents it to the world or to you as definitive proof of your instability. She says, "See? I told you you were dangerous." By baiting you into this explosion, she has successfully turned the tables. Your legitimate frustration is now discarded as mere aggression. You are left standing in the wreckage of your own reaction, feeling the crushing weight of guilt. You are now the aggressor, and she is the victim. The cycle is complete. You have been trained to fear your own emotions. The silence that follows your outburst is not a resolution, it is a cage. You try to retreat, to walk away and clear your head, but the door is no longer just wood and hinges. It is blocked by the narrative she has woven. If you leave, you are abandoning her in her time of need. If you stay, you are forced to witness the damage you supposedly caused. You look for an exit, a way to reclaim your autonomy, but every route is booby-trapped with guilt. You realize that your attempts to set boundaries have only provided her with more leverage. You try to explain your perspective, but your words are intercepted, twisted, and fed back to you as evidence of your selfishness. The room feels smaller now. The walls are closing in not because of the physical space, but because of the psychological perimeter. The trap is absolute, and the realization hits you with the force of a physical blow. You are being dismantled piece by piece. In the wreckage of your autonomy, a strange, terrifying impulse takes hold. Your brain, starved of the warmth you once knew, begins to hallucinate a path back to safety. You know she is the architect of this misery, yet you find yourself watching her, waiting for a single softening of her gaze. You are desperate for her to tell you that everything is fine, that the conflict was just a misunderstanding. This is the trauma bond in its most lethal form. It is not love. It is a physiological dependency. You are like a drowning person reaching for the hand that pushed you under. You approach her, your posture slumped, your voice barely a whisper, seeking the very comfort she has systematically dismantled. You apologize for things you did not do, hoping that if you just submit enough, if you just show enough contrition, the storm will pass. You are bargaining with your own captor. As you lean into her space, looking for a shred of empathy, you ignore the coldness in her eyes. You have become your own jailer, tethered to her by the very hope that she will change, even as you feel the invisible leash tighten around your throat. You stand before her, waiting for the warmth, but it never arrives. Instead, you see a stranger. This is the moment the fracture deepens. Your mind tries to reconcile the person standing in front of you, the one who is cold, dismissive, and calculating, with the version of her you keep locked in your memory. You reach for a specific moment, a time when she was kind, when she was the partner you believed in. You try to force that image over the reality of her current expression. It does not fit. The dissonance is violent. Your brain screams that she is the one who loves you, yet your eyes see the one who is actively dismantling your sense of self. You feel a physical vertigo, a loss of orientation that has nothing to do with the room and everything to do with your own identity. You are trying to hold two contradictory truths at once. She is your savior, and she is your tormentor. The effort to maintain this delusion is exhausting. The person you are pleading with is not there, and the person who is there is someone you do not know. You are trapped in the wreckage of your own perception. The confusion is not just a mental state, it is a chemical trap. Your brain is currently operating on a reward schedule identical to a high-stakes gambler. When she is cold, your dopamine levels plummet, triggering a withdrawal that feels like physical hunger. You are desperate for a fix. Then, she shifts. She offers a single, fleeting smile or a gentle touch after hours of silence. That tiny, calculated crumb of affection triggers a massive dopamine spike. Your brain ignores the abuse and fixates entirely on the relief of that reward. You are not choosing to stay, you are being biologically steered. This cycle of intermittent reinforcement creates a neural pathway that prioritizes her approval above your own survival. Every time she withholds affection, the craving intensifies. Every time she grants it, the bond hardens. You are physically addicted to the volatility. You have learned to equate the end of her hostility with love, but it is merely the end of the withdrawal. Your nervous system is now wired to seek the very person who keeps you in a state of constant, agonizing depletion. You are chasing a high that she controls, and your brain is working against you, demanding you return to the source of your pain just to feel normal again. You find yourself explaining her actions to others, but the words leaving your mouth are not your own. You are reciting her script. When a friend points out her cruelty, you immediately jump to her defense. You cite her stress, her past, or your own supposed failures. This is the mirror of Stockholm Syndrome. In captivity, the victim adopts the perspective of the captor to survive. You have done the same. You have internalized her worldview so completely that you now view your own suffering as a necessary price for her presence. You protect her from the truth because the truth would force you to acknowledge that you are being held hostage. Your survival mechanism has hijacked your judgment. You do not see her as an oppressor. You see her as a wounded person who needs your protection, even as she systematically destroys your boundaries. You are actively participating in your own subjugation, rationalizing every insult and every cold silence as a test you must pass. You have become the primary apologist for your own misery, ensuring that the cage remains locked from the inside. You are the guardian of the system. Look at your daily life and try to find yourself. You will find only her. You try to decide on a simple path for your afternoon, but your mind immediately pivots to her potential disapproval. You have stopped asking what you want and started calculating what she will permit. This is the hollow core. Your hobbies, your opinions, and even your tone of voice have been filtered through the sieve of her expectations until nothing original remains. You are a shell. When you stand in front of a mirror, you do not see a man with goals or boundaries. You see a collection of responses designed to keep her calm. You have dismantled your own identity piece by piece to create space for her needs. The tragedy is not that she took your freedom, but that you gave it away. You have become an extension of her will, a tool she uses to validate her own existence. There is nothing left of the man you were before. You are not living a life. You are merely maintaining a performance of someone she can control. Then, the fog breaks. You are sitting at the dinner table, and she speaks. It is a mundane request, but you feel the familiar sharp tug at the base of your throat. For the first time, you do not just feel the pressure, you see the mechanism. It is not a metaphor. It is a leash, woven from your own fear and her calculated silence, tethering your pulse to her mood. You watch her hand move across the table, and you realize your own hand is trembling in anticipation of her next reaction. The clarity is violent. You see the entire architecture of your imprisonment. Every apology you have ever offered, every boundary you have surrendered, and every piece of your dignity you have traded for peace, it was all part of this design. The realization hits your chest like a physical blow. This is not a relationship, it is a controlled environment. You look at the walls of the room and realize they are not protecting you, they are containing you. The air in the room feels thin, insufficient for a man who has finally woken up. You cannot breathe here anymore. You cannot stay. Now, you must test the tether. The next time she goes quiet, do not reach out, do not ask what is wrong. Do not offer a hollow apology to bridge the gap. Sit in the room and watch the silence. It will feel like a physical weight pressing against your ribs, urging you to speak, to beg, to restore the status quo. That urge is the leash tightening. Ignore it. Keep your hands flat on the table. Keep your breathing steady. Watch her face for the flicker of frustration when her tactic fails to produce your usual panic. You are no longer the one performing, you are the one observing. This is the first time you have occupied the same space without surrendering your autonomy to her mood. The silence is no longer a weapon she wields against you. It is a vacuum you refuse to fill. You are learning to exist in the absence of her approval. It is uncomfortable, yes, but it is the first breath of air you have taken in years. You are not fixing the situation because there is nothing for you to fix. You are simply waiting. You are watching the mechanism fail in real time. Now, turn your attention to the reflex. That sharp, sudden urge to apologize, it is a conditioned response to a crime you never committed. Think back to the last time she went silent. You felt the guilt rise, didn't you? You searched your memory for a mistake, a slip, a word out of place. You apologized for her mood. You apologized for the weather. You apologized for existing in a way that didn't suit her current narrative. Stop. That apology is the currency of your own imprisonment. When you say sorry for nothing, you are confirming that you are the problem. Next time the urge hits, pause. Physically count to 10. Ask yourself, what is the specific action I am apologizing for? If you cannot name a concrete transgression, the guilt is not yours. It is a projection, a tool designed to make you scramble for her validation. By refusing to offer that apology, you break the circuit. You stop the flow of power from your autonomy to her control. You are no longer a participant in her theater of blame. You are a man standing on solid ground, watching the manipulation fall flat. Now, strip the emotion away. Treat your relationship like a cold, clinical study. You need a diagnostic checklist to see the reality you have been ignoring. Start here. First, does she demand an apology for things you did not do? Second, does her mood dictate the entire atmosphere of your home? Third, does she withdraw affection as a punishment for your independence? Fourth, do you feel like you are walking on glass, constantly calculating your next move? Fifth, does she twist your words until you are defending your character instead of discussing the issue? Write these down. Do not look for excuses. Do not look for the reasons why she acts this way. Just look for the patterns. When you see a behavior, mark it. Is it a recurring tactic? Is it designed to make you feel small or guilty? When you view these interactions as data points rather than personal failures, the emotional fog begins to lift. You are no longer trapped in the heat of the moment, reacting to her triggers. You are standing outside the glass, looking at the machinery of control. Each checkmark on your list is a piece of evidence. This is not about love. Once you have the data, you have the truth. And the truth is the only thing that can set you free. Now that you have the data, you need a shield. This is the art of becoming a gray rock. When she attempts to trigger a reaction, you do not engage, you do not argue, you do not escalate. You become as boring, as uninteresting, and as unresponsive as a stone in the middle of a field. Imagine yourself as that rock. When she throws a barb, it hits the stone and falls away. There is no bounce. There is no echo. You provide no emotional fuel for her fire. If she tries to provoke you with a jab, you respond with a simple, neutral statement. No defense, no explanation, just a flat, factual acknowledgement. This is not about being cold, it is about being impenetrable. Your goal is to remove the reward she seeks, your distress. When you stop reacting, the game loses its purpose. She relies on your intensity to validate her power, so you deny her that validation. Watch her face when you refuse to play the role she assigned you. The most dangerous habit you have is the urge to explain yourself. Every time you offer a reason, a justification, or a defense, you are handing her the keys to your autonomy. You are telling her that your actions require her approval. Stop. When she accuses you of something you did not do, or twists your words to paint you as the villain, your instinct will be to set the record straight. Fight that instinct. The moment you start defending, you have already lost. You are entering her arena, playing by her rules, and feeding the very conflict she created to keep you off balance. Instead, try this. When she attacks, say nothing. Let the silence hang in the air. Do not offer a counter-argument. Do not try to make her understand your perspective. She does not want to understand. She wants to control. By refusing to defend, you are effectively cutting off her supply of drama. Watch what happens when you stop participating in the argument. You are no longer responsible for her interpretation of reality. You are only responsible for your own peace. Silence is not submission. It is the ultimate boundary. Now that you have mastered the silence, it is time to build the fence. Boundaries are not suggestions. They are the physical and mental borders of your existence. Start small. If she demands your time when you are working, you do not argue the necessity of your task. You simply state that you are unavailable until a specific hour, and then you continue your work. When she tries to bypass that, you do not engage in a debate. You leave the room. The first time you do this, your heart will race. You will feel the old familiar panic, the fear that you are doing something wrong, the fear of her explosion. That is the conditioning speaking. Let it pass. Observe the fear, acknowledge it, and then proceed anyway. You will find that the world does not end when you prioritize your own needs. She may escalate, she may throw accusations, but you are no longer there to catch them. You are standing on your own ground. Every time you hold a boundary, you are signaling to your own brain that you are a person of value. This is a terrifying process, but it is the only path to freedom. As you hold these lines, the panic will begin to fade, replaced by a cold, clear sense of autonomy. You are no longer reacting to her shifts. You are deciding your own direction. There is a final hurdle you must clear. You have to accept that your newfound autonomy might be the very thing that ends the relationship. When you stop being a puppet, the person holding the strings often loses interest or turns to open hostility. You must be prepared for this. For a long time, you stayed because you were terrified of the void left by her absence. You feared the silence, the loneliness, and the judgment of others. But look at what that fear has cost you. It has cost you your clarity, your confidence, and your ability to trust your own mind. You are now standing at a crossroads. You can choose to retreat, to apologize for your boundaries, and to return to the cage, or you can accept. If she cannot exist in a world where you are an equal, then the relationship is not a partnership, it is a hostage situation. Choosing to walk away, or accepting that she might walk away, is not an act of defeat, it is an act of liberation. You are trading a false sense of security. This is the price of freedom. It is high, yes, but it is the only currency that buys back your life. Stop holding on to a version of her. Start holding on to the person you are becoming. Now that you have accepted the potential end, you must execute the exit with surgical precision. Do not fall into the trap of the final grand confrontation. There is no closure to be found in a debate. She will use your desire for resolution as a hook to pull you back. Instead, adopt the strategy of the ghost. When you decide to leave, you do not explain your reasons. You do not justify your departure. Pack your essentials, secure your finances, and move. Coordinate your departure for a time when she is absent. If you must communicate, keep it strictly functional and brief. Every word you add is a crack in your armor. Your goal is not to win the argument, it is to win your life back. By removing the drama, you remove the fuel. Keep your gaze forward, keep your movements quiet, and do not look back until you are safely on the other side. The moment you stop reacting to the emotional shifts, the leash goes slack. You will feel a phantom pull at first, a reflexive urge to check if she is pleased or to anticipate her next move. Ignore it. That is just the habit of compliance, dying out. You are no longer a passenger in your own life, waiting for the next turn in the road. You are the one holding the wheel. Look at your daily routine. Notice how much of it was previously designed to avoid her disapproval or to manage her moods. Now, reclaim that energy. Spend it on your own goals, your own health, and your own peace. You will find that the world does not collapse when you stop playing the role she assigned you. Instead, it expands. You are now observing the landscape of your life with clear eyes, free from the filter of her manipulation. This is the definition of autonomy. It is not about being cold or heartless. It is about being whole. You have cut the strings that tethered your self-worth to her validation. Understand this final truth. Control is a choice you allow. The leash only has power if you remain attached to it. You have seen the strings, you have identified the mechanics of the manipulation, and you have stepped away from the dynamic. Now, you must ensure you never let that leash be held by another again. Vigilance is the price of your newfound freedom. You will encounter others who attempt to test your boundaries, who will try to trigger your old reflexes of guilt or compliance. Recognize these attempts for what they are, tests of your sovereignty. Do not entertain them. Do not negotiate with them. When you feel the familiar pull of an emotional demand, pause. Ask yourself if this serves your path or if it is merely a ghost of the past. You are the architect of your own reality now. The power you once surrendered to manage someone else's stability belongs entirely to you. Never again trade your autonomy for the illusion of comfort. Never again let your self-worth be dictated by the moods of another. The strings are cut. The leash is gone. Walk forward into your life and do not look back.